This is a TalkStation original podcast.
We have joining us from Carteret County, Representative Celeste Cairns, representing District 13, which is Carteret and most of Havelock. And with that, Celeste, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Lockwood. Good to be with you.
A pleasure. And Celeste has also made arrangements to bring on someone who I've had the pleasure of knowing, both as a sheriff and now as a member of the House of Representatives in North Carolina, District 16, Pender County, Carson Smith. And with that, Carson, good afternoon. Welcome as well. Thank you for your time.
Hey, yes, sir. No problem. Glad to be here.
Well, I appreciate both of you doing this. You know, you two work very hard. Now it's going on, I think, almost 3 weeks ago. Gosh, things fly when you're having fun. On the salvation of the shrimp trawl industry in North Carolina, when you work diligently among the Republican caucus, but also, I might add, the whole House of Representatives to defend the future of shrimp trawl. And I'm going to start with you, Celeste, because you gave a very impassioned speech in that press conference that Wednesday morning, actually, I guess it is now, Wednesday morning. What was your feeling at the time as you were giving that speech? Did you feel pretty confident that other members of the House would agree with your perspective?
Well, at that point, I would say I was hoping so. Certainly a lot of us had been talking to other members, and I was feeling pretty good about our chances. The biggest hope, of course, was that it would not make it to the floor at all, because I was not 100% confident where it would end up if the entire House was voting on it. So at that point, I was very emotional. We had so many wonderful people there. A lot of my friends, a lot of folks from Carteret County were there. And I was very worried, and it had been quite a few days at that point. I was close to tears, probably half of each day during that period. And so at the press conference, I was emotional. I was angry with what we were seeing from the Senate and the way this had all come about. One, that it had happened at all, but two, the timing was particularly difficult because we were all so busy with so many other things we were trying to get done in that last week, and then to throw this whole wrench at us at that point was startling and very frustrating, to say the least.
I have spoken with Senator Bobby Hanig of the 1st Senatorial District, and he worked diligently to delay the Senate vote and was relatively successful. He forced a second reading on it, as I understand. But here we have a representative from Dare County, and of course, Keith Kidwell was fighting this issue big time. As a matter of fact, he bragged about the fact that he and Pricey Harrison from Guilford County, he said, when the two of them are on the same seat of music, he said there's something right about the particular issue because they are quite often at odds. You are representing Pender County, and of course we're talking about the areas down in the southern regions of the state. You too are seeing the challenges in your district, are you not, with the future of the commercial fishing industry? This is more than just a regional issue.
Yes, certainly. I've got all of Pender, which is the Topsail area, and I also have the southern part of Onslow, which is Sneaks Ferry, so right. a big fishing constituent there. And, you mentioned Kidwell and Harrison. That's like crossing the streams in Ghostbusters, I think, when they agree on things. But it was good to have support. And as Celeste said, Plan A for us, and I said us, I mean, every coastal legislator, I think, without exception, understood what this meant to the entire coast. And, all the coastal representatives, mm-hmm. There may be a senator south of us that maybe didn't agree with us, but we all wanted Plan A to be, this cannot make it to the floor. We don't want to make it to the floor. Plan B, of course, would be, hey, we need some Democrat support in case it does get to the floor to be sure that it doesn't pass. And I think, and I'll speak for me, and Celeste will probably agree, when I first started talking to the Republican members, where we started, a lot of them were, it's, the fish are down, and we're going to have to do something. And at that point, to me, it became an education mission to start educating these folks on what they had heard from some of the recreational fishermen. And those recreational fishermen that live inland are hearing what the Marine Fisheries Commission is telling them, which is a load of crap, that we don't have any fish in North Carolina. So I think it became an educational mission at that point, and we were all really, Celeste at the forefront, we were all able to convince the Republican members enough to where it didn't even make it to the floor.
You bring up the educational aspect of this, and Celeste, in our conversations last week, you said then you were concerned, and still are, I gather, about the fact that this bill, if you will, not this particular bill, but the movement, if you will use that term, the concept, has potential to be reintroduced in the legislature in the future. Your concern then was, how do we get the message across for the rest of the state?
I think there are so many misleading narratives out there and so many myths. You know, there's this bycatch myth of a 4-to-1 ratio. There are a lot of myths out there that need to be debunked, and many of them have been debunked. And I think there's a lack of education across the state about the efforts that have already been deployed to reduce the bycatch and to manage the fishery and to manage the amount of the estuaries that are even open for trawling and stuff. And so I think that education is extremely important and something that we are going to have to work at as a whole group. We're going to have to work on educating the entire state, but especially the legislators who are not from this area, who are only hearing those talking points. And I was so amazed at the groups that came together so quickly and worked so hard and so rapidly to fight this thing. I mean, we had input from NC Catch and from the Blue Crab Association and from the Fisheries Association and from the Watermen United. And, you know, everybody came together. We had resolutions from many of the counties and some of the towns, you know, from their boards of commissioners that reached out. And it was quite an impressive uprising of people. But we need to continue the education part of it, because I feel like we made some inroads there, but we were so busy. All of us are always so busy. And so even though we get the emails that list the facts, we don't necessarily have a chance to actually read it all and take it all in. So we need to continue that effort when things are not so busy, and not wait until the next crisis or when this bill, you know, or something similar raises its ugly head again.
Earlier, I was talking with a representative for the Southern Shrimp Alliance, Deborah Long, and she commented that of the 8 shrimping states, southern shrimping states, and that's Virginia south all the way around to actually to Mexico, but Mexico is not part of it, that we in North Carolina have the most stringent requirements for shrimp trawlers, most stringent requirement for TEDs. That's you'll hear people need to keep hearing that acronym, turtle extruder devices, or BIRDS, BRDS. They just throw in the I, BIRDS, bycatch reduction devices, and the fact that of the inland waters in North Carolina, of the 2.3 million acres of inland waters, only half maximum is even open for trawling, and only at certain times of the year. And of that half, only a certain percentage is really usable for trawling altogether. So it is amazing. And Carson, you mentioned this in our phone conversation in preparation. 300 shrimp trawlers, 300 out of the tens of thousands of recreational fishermen that are in the waters right now, 300 are having that much of an impact on our fisheries? That's a real question. And I think you got a very good point, Celeste, the need for education. Carson, I want you to address the topic you said when we were talking yesterday in preparation for today's program about the fact that here we've got people in Piedmont, North Carolina, making decisions that have no impact on their lives. So much of the legislature is controlled by the Piedmont. They have the lion's share of population, therefore the lion's share of representatives. This is a big issue for Eastern North Carolina, is it not?
It is, and I think when you mentioned, and I'll start with this and then end up where you want me to be. Celeste talked about how busy it was that last week, basically before we went into recess, when this actually came up. And I think the folks from the coast that went up to Raleigh that day, and thank God for them, because we could have not, me and Celeste, right, and the representatives on the coast, could not have done it without them, because that was the last week. That was an incredibly busy week anyway. And it's easy when we get busy for things to slip by that we can't stop. But the folks from the coast made sure that it didn't get by, because everybody up there that whole week was talking about Shrimp Gate and saw the T-shirts. Right. But what we deal with is the term public trust waters. Every North Carolinian has an interest by law, by Constitution, in all the waters of North Carolina, including the inside coastal waters and, to up to 3 miles offshore. So what we've got, out of 120 members in the House, I believe I counted right, there's only 9 of us that actually are coastal representatives, because the population is a little less down here. The districts are a lot bigger than they are. We have 9 along the whole coast. Meanwhile, Wake County and Mecklenburg County all have, I think, about 15 or 16 representatives apiece in those counties. So what we have to deal with, and it ties into that education part, is we have to let the people in the Piedmont know what the interests are, not just the interest, but what the lifestyle is and what the economy is down here on the coast. And I know that they hear the folks from the Piedmont, the representatives from the Piedmont area, they do hear from the fishermen up there. And I think I mentioned this to you when we were talking earlier. Recreational fishermen and commercial fishermen in my area, sure, there might be a little problem every now and then, but they respect each other. Heck, the blue crab people, sometimes they've had a little issue with the shrimp trawls, but you know what? They've worked around it, and the blue crab folks were the first ones in Raleigh that day that all this kind of broke. So the ones in the middle part of the state, and it's not all their fault, they're getting bad information, I believe, from the scientists on the Division of Marine Fisheries and the Marine Resource Commission. And I think that's probably where we as a legislature need to start. But again, the 9 of us, and I hope that's right, but it can't be far from 9, but the 9 of us can't do it by ourselves. We have got to have the folks along the coast come to Raleigh. Come to Raleigh again. People inland. You know people who can talk to their representatives to be sure that, number one, we keep this silly thing dead, to ban a shrimp trawl. The next thing I'm expecting when we go back on a couple of days, I'm expecting to see gill nets to be outlawed, because that's the other great Satan that some of these organizations talk about that have destroyed the fishery in North Carolina, that I contend has not been destroyed. I think there are plenty of fish. You and Celeste were talking about exactly what North Carolina has done. We have the biggest estuary in all those states you mentioned, except Virginia. Chesapeake Bay is a little bit bigger, but you don't see shrimping all the way up to Washington, D.C., and as far north as it goes. It's the shrimping up there, it's my understanding, that it is nothing like what we have in the Pamlico Basin and the Intercoastal Waterway down here along the southern part. So the biggest thing that we need are people from the coast to remember there is a Raleigh and that their voices need to be heard, and when their voices are heard, it does make a difference.
That's Carson Smith with us this afternoon, District 16, Pender and portions of Onslow County. Celeste, I'm going to let you wrap it up. We've got a minute and a half to go. Your comments about either Carson's remarks or what you think we need to do, that your constituents, what do you want us to do?
Gosh, I appreciate Carson's comments. They are all true and 100% accurate. I think, and this is something that I spoke to our Republican at our 3rd district meeting. We have 15 counties, so you have 15 county chairmen of the parties there. I said, you all know the county chairmen in the other counties throughout the state. Talk to them. We need to use the connections that we have across the state. And so anyone out there who's listening, who have friends, maybe they're on the recreational side, or maybe they're involved with party politics, where they're from, those folks talk to their representatives, and they will have the most influence with them, because if they hear from the base of their party, they will listen. And I think that I would just encourage folks to reach out individually, but also continue to reach out to the legislature, to all of us. As you have facts or something simple, don't send a 2-page email. Send quick bites.
Okay.
Send, one-page documents that talk about, shrimping and what, and I don't know. It's hard to say, honestly, but we just can't wait until the next threat. We need to go ahead and try to eliminate that threat.
Celeste, I think that you, and of course you leaned into this one, Carson, we can't wait. That's the final conclusion. Am I correct on that, Celeste?
That's exactly right.
And Carson, you'd agree? We cannot
That's
wait.
right. Let me say, Celeste has done y'all good. She has been a heck of a representative that really headed this up, and I appreciate her efforts. And Raleigh, on this, we just got to be sure we keep our guard up.
All right, to Celeste Cairns and to Carson Smith, thank you for being with us, and thank you for your leadership.